will convene electronically to transact the business statutorily required or necessary to continue the operations of the city. The public is encouraged to participate in the public meeting by sending any comments they may have to Becky Scott. The meeting's open to the public for viewing, but there will not be time for comments. Because of me not thinking until the last minute, I didn't get in touch with whoever the pastor was supposed to be tonight. Thomas agreed to give the invocation. Go ahead, everybody.
All right. Jesus, you were born in a little town. You grew up under the authority of local leaders and officials who managed the majority of your life. We lift up our local leaders today. We pray for our mayors, city councils, county commissioners, police chiefs, judges, and all who serve our local communities. Strengthen them with wisdom and grace for the heavy burdens they carry. May they manage their teams and projects with love, keep their hearts pure and their eyes turned toward your face as they work in the best interest of the people that they have been called to serve for. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Yeah.
Thank you, Thomas. Need a motion to approve the agenda.
Pledge.
Do we have one item to add to the agenda?
We've got two.
We got two. One I know about, I'll make a motion that we add R2111, partially exempting certain real estate in a revitalization area from real estate taxation to the agenda.
Okay. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pretty sure there was a second one.
There is. It's R2112.
I found it. Thank you, Becky. We have a resolution R2112. It's to designate certain property as revitalization area.
Move for approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Everybody say aye.
Yes.
Got to have unanimous to put them things on there. So we have corrections, approval of minutes from January the 5th called meeting to January 5th work session. A regular meeting on January the 12th, a joint called meeting on January 19th, and a called meeting on January the 26th.
Move for approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We've got some appointments we need to do tonight. We need to consider a planning commission. That would be Wayne Lamb's seat, and he's willing to serve again.
I'll make a motion, we reappoint Wayne Lamb.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We need to consider appointing a representative to the Allegheny Highlands Chamber of Commerce. That would be the city's representative, city council representative. David has been serving on that, and I'd like to make a motion that David continue to serve. As long as they're meeting by Zoom, it's no problem, is it, David?
Yeah, you're right. As long as there's a Zoom link and I can listen in, I'm good.
Okay. Second.
Any other nominations? All in favor?
Aye.
An appointment to the Redevelopment Housing Authority to fill the unexpired term of Councilman Carson. Becky, did we have anybody that was interested in that?
No, sir. Nobody contacted me.
Council, does anybody have anyone they talked to, would like to nominate, would like to continue to search?
They'll need to know it's a lunchtime meeting, Tommy.
Yeah. Maybe we can table that until we can.
Yeah, we'll have to.
I'll move we table this till March.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Becky, I guess we need to advertise for that position again.
Yeah.
Just get a little ad in the paper. I think there's probably some kind of ad laying around in your office somewhere you can follow the same pattern. Just seeking people for that appointment.
Okay, I'll take care of it. Thank you.
We have an appointment to a citizen at large representative to the Social Service Board. And that would fill the position that Vice Mayor Crozier have to leave because it's a at-large position for a citizen.
I believe Lisa Persinger's interested in that.
Is that a nomination?
Certainly, I nominate Lisa Persinger.
And I'll second.
Any other nominations? All in favor, Lisa?
Aye.
Mark? Because David is moving from the citizen's position to the council position, do we need to do anything technically to just keep going?
Yes, sir.
Let's keep going to meeting, David. That brings us to a special presentation. Would you like to take care of this, Ms. Onitis?
Yes, sir. And if it pleases us, I would ask that potentially, since we do have a short agenda this evening after my report, when we move into closed session, if Mr. Stiltner is willing, that we put him for a portion of our closed session discussion just on one specific topic I would like to cover with you all, if that is okay with you all. Mark, am I able to do that? It's an economic development matter.
Yeah. Council is allowed to bring whatever parties they want into a closed meeting for those particular discussions.
Yes.
All right. Perfect. So I will tee this up for Mr. Stiltner. I will say that, as you all are aware, we began discussions on surplus property shortly after my arrival and sort of trying to target what could designated uses be. We then, through the Brownfields program that the EDC administers, submitted Rivermont School as part of one of the properties that could benefit from a phase 1 environmental survey. Through that, Draper Aiden and I discovered that, landmark development really has a knack for redeveloping and revitalizing surplus schools as well as other large structures, but mainly schools is really in their wheelhouse. Another thing that we did when we did the site prospectus with the county on a joint opportunity zone marketing tool was we worked to include former Rivermont School in a effort to try to market and post it for housing, given the housing study that was done probably about 18 to 24 months ago regionally, just identifying the gaps in diversified housing here within the Allegheny Highlands. I will say that Mr. Stiltner has a stellar track record. We had planned to meet quite a few times before in late to mid-fall, but as you all are aware, and as we're meeting now, COVID got in the way of a lot of in-person meetings and safe site visits to buildings. So we met probably about 2 weeks ago and formally fully toured Rivermont School, which landmark development that he is affiliated with had keen interest in for probably about almost 9 to 10 months now. And he's here tonight to present to you all a very interesting and keen opportunity, I guess, for lack of better words. I mean, this is really a kind of what I would view as a do or die opportunity for Rivermont School, given its current condition, to really for us to hustle as a locality and support some efforts to get some grant dollars through the state from Virginia Housing Development Association, VHDA, so that we can work on focusing on workforce housing and senior housing, which is a major gap here, to really provide an asset to that neighborhood that otherwise we have a city asset that is sitting. And as you all know, I preach time and time again, we should not be our own slumlords. So with that being said, I will turn it over to Mr. Stiltner, who has a great presentation for you all, and he will take it from the top.
Good evening. Crystal, thank you very much for turning this over. And I want to thank the council for having me last minute, voting me in this evening to give the presentation. The Rivermont School. All right, sorry, technical issue. But the Rivermont School, we come up and met with the Highland Allegheny Development Authority and also Darlene, which is, as you know, Clifton Forge town manager. And we had the opportunity to come over and meet Crystal and tour Covington. It'd been a lot of years since I'd been in Covington, Virginia. And but we got the opportunity to come around, and they drove me all through town and upper neighborhoods, lower neighborhoods, and just kind of showed me what was going on, knowing that there's a huge industry and largest export in the state of Virginia in Youngstown. And then the need for the housing. Stu Patz, we know him as well. And I think we were able to get his market study years ago. And there's a huge need anywhere you go in this country for housing, diversified housing for high income, low income, middle income, just from A to Z housing, homeowners programs, different things like that. But speed this up, went by the school. They wouldn't let me out the van. I tried to jump out and somebody held me in. I really want to look at this school. And Lori with Draper Aiden called months, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago. And I was out on another historic project in Blairs, Virginia, which is also a school, Southside Lofts. And we've been, as Chris said, we've been trying to connect. And to push this along, kind of our problem with Landmark is it's a beautiful building. So it is a gorgeous building inside and out. Crystal walked in it. We've got some great pictures to share with you guys tonight. But Dwayne Anderson, the founder of Landmark Asset Services, created our company with a vision to support small town or rural communities, create revitalization through connectivity, revitalizing neighborhoods, downtown storefronts, small town main streets. And through the years that he has worked in the Southeast on historic buildings, he has brought a lot of people together inside of our company, outside of our company, throughout a couple different states, that one of their biggest loves is historics and adaptive reuse and preservation, revitalization through preservation. And so that's why I'm in the community in Covington. And our company is a family-owned company. We've been in business for 35 years is when Dwayne started the company, 37 years ago. And we are just trying to bring what we know how to do to Covington and share it and give you our ideals and spark something. And if we don't present a great opportunity and it can be built upon, that's still a success to us. So we just are excited to be here to offer ideals of what we saw when they wouldn't let me out the van as they drove by at 15 miles an hour. And I've spent, as Crystal said, 10 months to a year to get back. And I got so excited, and I was brought and had a wonderful tour of the town again. But this time they let me get out of the car. They didn't just drive me through. So I want to take my face off and share a presentation that we've got for you guys and kind of talk through it. And I'm trying to talk some of my nervousness out.
Oh, don't worry, John, you're doing great. And while John pulls that up, I will say, because he's underselling himself, we did a fair amount of due diligence on our end. Mr. Mike Lockaby, the assistant city attorney, and I, in contacting localities that they've worked in Virginia with doing similar projects, namely Martinsville, Pulaski, and Danville, all had successful projects. So again, I think that this will be something that you all will find very interesting and of something that adds public value to our community fiber here.
And if I get a little eager or I sound overexcited it's because since I have come into construction and my career as an adult, I have been around historic adaptive reuse, and being from a small hometown community is very important. And in my career, I have had the privilege of working on 20 plus schools personally in some manner, fashion, or form. I've also been able to be involved as the lead developer on schools that I did plaster and hung sheetrock when I was in my early 20s. It's just unbelievable of just the circle here. So I'm going to see if I can share my presentation. Got somebody here to help me.
Yeah, if you go to the top of your screen, it should say share screen. And if not, we can have Thomas pull it up and you can always just say next slide. Would that work easiest, John?
We got it.
Oh, there we go.
All right.
Boom.
Let's see.
Now, if you just go to slideshow, there you go. Boom. Perfect.
All right. And I also, while I'm here, I want to introduce Sam Sarai, who is third generation grandson of Dwayne Anderson. And his resumes, he's been doing this since he sat in the car seat. I mean, just literally, he's been doing this his entire life. I have the privilege of working with this amazing young man on a daily basis. And the reason we are not wearing masks is because we have been working together since January 1st, 2020, back to back for ideals, for brainstorming, for just creativity. And I'm telling you, I am trying to catch up with him. So he's here to help me, and just want to introduce.
Well, thank you, John. Happy to be here. So let's show them what we're doing at Rivermont. That's awesome.
All right. So everybody's familiar with Rivermont School. We are nicknamed the Landmark Group. We are a basket of company. We have a property management company, Landmark Asset Services, which also we have a development company, compliance company. So we are an integrated corporation of companies. We're third generation. I have more than 150 people with expertise in architectural design, city planning, historic preservation, layered financing, which we'll talk about some, construction and property management. We at one time even had our own construction arm. So from the start of introduction to the community, where we manage these projects and revitalize them and redevelop them again, 20, 25 years, you'll see me back in the community. We have won several awards throughout Landmark's tenure. It's great to have these small communities and these historic revitalizations recognized, some on state level, some locally, and some nationally. We develop, own, and manage. I think now our numbers 87, 90 properties through our portfolio, 4,000 units, 65 retail and commercial storefronts. We have had huge success in doing this through public-private relationships, coming to communities like Covington, and just putting our ideals out there and seeing if we can come up with a plan to make something good happen. So that's been our major success, is working with communities. Here's a map of kind of where we are. We are in 9 states with 90 properties, which is a lot. But in the past, over a decade now, Lisa Sarai, being the CEO and president of our company, she's brought us back home and reminded us that we are a property management company that develops. We care about the end user, the community, and the people that live in our units. So we've brought that back home, and our major states are North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia. We are currently working on, I think, three other schools in Virginia through this same just recipe of support and know-how and professionals that we work with. Speaking of the list of properties, these are the schools that Landmark has developed over. I think one of our very first ones was I think it was E.A. Swain, and that was 1989. We just completed the redevelopment of that project. As you can see, we are working on redevelop. We have redeveloped several in our portfolio and continue to do so in mills, hospitals, different projects. We don't just do schools, and sometimes we do new construction. We just don't like to. but we've been doing this for a very, very long time with schools. So schools are amazing. They share a lot of history, a lot of heritage. I remember staring out the window in first grade myself. So it's just something really fun to work on and get the community involved and get just everybody involved. And there's a lot of people that is the button. So want to just give you some examples of projects that successful projects that we've worked with cities and towns and small rural communities to bring quality loft style housing into communities. We do it through layered financing. We utilize several different programs to fill in gaps that you may have in the time of construction and materials. It just seems like there's no top to it. Wish it would come back down a little bit, but so that's a lot of our expertise is working through different programs for layered financing to bring enough equity into communities to be able to revitalize buildings that most people think the cheapest thing to do is tear them down. But that's, it's not always about money. So this is Asheboro Mill Lofts. This is actually the end of my construction career. I was the project manager on this project in Asheboro, North Carolina, along with working on the revitalization of the Sunset Theater for the town of Asheboro, or the city of Asheboro. We are currently been invited back to Asheboro and are working on a senior project that is connected to their new Randolph County Senior Center. This is a 70-unit meal revitalization loft project for families. It was, all of these are amazing in their own ways, but a very successful project. It's right in downtown Asheboro. It's part of their revitalization plan that they've been working on for over a decade now. And John Allburn and John Smith, the mayor, John Allburn, city manager, they are doing an amazing job revitalizing their downtown. We're just lucky to be a part of it. They're teaching me a ton. Groom School Apartments. This is mine and Sam's first project together as young developers working for a family company that we worked on together in Virginia, South Hill, Virginia. We come up and met with the town, and this little school on the outskirts of town was just so quaint and had an amazing surrounding. And it's next to, I want to say it's 35 to a 50 acre baseball, park. I think 8 baseball fields, 8 tennis courts, inside basketball. It's just an amazing place for this project. So we work with the community, and we also work with Draper Aiding. This was one of the first VBAF remediation grants that I believe was awarded in the state of Virginia. So this is where we started getting our experience with working through VBAF, which is a huge benefit for communities to look at possible redevelopment and economic opportunities. But Groom School, we placed this in service 2 years ago. It serves 54 families and seniors. A lot of the ideals that we have for Claremont School and being able to demographically target the need in the community of Covington is building new construction in the schoolyard and utilizing the school itself as a smaller target for targeting seniors, but still allowing families to live on property in these projects as well. Albemarle School is located in the central business district of Albemarle, North Carolina. We worked with the community to help revitalize that because it is literally right in the center of their downtown. It's right next to their brand new elementary school. It was dilapidated, grown up. There was vandalism. There was a lot of problems going on here. And to make this work, we worked through grants, getting other funds to come in. The city is also leasing the auditorium back from the project, and they hold events there. Not recently, in the past year, a lot of events has happened here, but in the historic auditorium, they have held a lot of events over the years. this is a great example of how a public-private relationship can revitalize a downtown community. Because when we went to Albemarle, Rex Todd, who taught me a lot, he was one of our affiliates that was killed in an accident years ago. But anyways, we worked on this together, and it revitalized their downtown. They had a 50% vacancy rate in their downtown, and you could call Albemarle to see what that rate is today. But I think their vacancy rate is down to 20 or 25%. And a historic hotel that they've been trying to revitalize for 25 years is getting ready to break ground, start construction. So just again, public-private relationship, revitalization through connectivity, and just great thing to do with these historic buildings that we have, and you have and other communities have great assets with vision. Rivermont. So that's looking at the previous projects that we worked with small rural town communities to just give visions and our ideals of what opportunity sits. Now, there's some leftover science projects here, I promise, but this is an amazing opportunity.
We'll attest to that.
And the bank, and I mean, Covington has so much opportunity at hand, and you have a great city manager that is running that train down the track and doing a great job to bring in. COVID's been challenging, but there's a lot of great people that are coming and interested in coming to Covington. This school, in the other previous projects I've showed you, could be the same thing. 10 years from now, what did it trigger? So you just don't know. You can sit here and guess, and well, what ifs, and we don't know, but we're going to present our ideal to you, and then everybody can go home and dream of how big everything can be. So moving on, talking about the science projects. This is where the building's in fair to good shape. The structural report was not great, but it wasn't bad. The environmental report wasn't terrible, but it wasn't good. But water, it's the killer of everything. And it's slowly killing this building. It's getting dilapidated so bad in some of the structural, like the stair towers and prominent wings, that it's time to do something. This is the very front of the building, right off of but this is the prominent front of the building, and it's going to fall down here in a couple of years. So it's time to act now. Like Crystal said, it's urgent. So we wanted to show you the science projects, and we should probably put more pictures because there are great parts of this building, but there are bad parts. And when you go in this building, you spend any time, you got to go home and you got to take sinus medicine, and then you're going to sneeze for a couple of days. But it's
That you do.
Yeah. But the amazing thing, and I will compliment whoever deserves, whether it be the community around it taking care of it so much, but the vandalism, it's not there. The rocks through windows, it's not there. I think, I know just by looking at the building that the community around this building really cares about this building. So I don't want to be the person to mess it up. So, moving on. To give a scale, they said the school is small. It's about 25,000 square feet. Our ideal and vision to target a demographic in Covington, because looking at the 2019 study that Crystal shared with us from Stu Patz, there's a 40+ need for new senior rental housing, and there's a 50+ need for new family rental housing for this spot. So what we're trying to do is target both in one by putting 8 units or 9 1-bedroom and 8 2-bedroom units in the school, which demographically is a good setup for senior living. And in the new construction building that's in the lower field to your left, 2-story interior corridor family, 2 and 3 bedrooms, no 1-bedrooms. That we feel small families up to 5 people for the 3 bedrooms would get a lot of use out of being separate, and we can target both groups. To give an aerial, how that fits the scale, gives you a scale of how it is to the neighborhood. We feel with the setback and the U shape, we hide a lot of just the mass of the building, and the way the architect has taken these 3 bedrooms and lofted them out towards North Rockbridge Avenue. We feel that kind of comes into the community of the 1 and 2 bedroom houses around it. And the biggest concern for me, and the biggest thing that I was worried about, is not overpowering. You don't want to overpower the neighborhood, but you got to have some economics of scale to be able to get $10 million to redevelop these projects and keep them successful, and keep them as a rock in the community and maintain them. We are also sharing all this as we're moving forward with these ideals. We're sharing it with professionals we work with, like our historian, and getting her input on, is this building too big? Are we on the right track? And she's giving us feedback as we go, but to kind of share what that would look like on site. 49 units.
Sorry to cut you off. I think it's important to note that on those immediate adjacent 2 streets combined, there's over 126 single family homes. So I think, there's a density already there. And so adding to a mixed use opportunity, it is already a mixed neighborhood of folks. So this proposed complex of a redevelopment of, I think it's 17 units, or is it 19 in the actual school, but total 47 units, would not create anything that would be out of characteristic for the neighborhood.
The density of the site's a little larger than the surrounding, but being managed and having maintenance men and cleaners and maintaining the grounds, it stay well kept up, and I think it will be a plus for the neighborhood versus what's there now, what that could become. And the just on the other side of North Rockbridge, it was interesting that Crystal counted all that. She got all of them, but I looked and there was like 24 houses just in the same amount of land on the other side of North Rockbridge as there is on the school property itself, or at the same side of the school property, 24 houses. This is Almar School interior. The picture, it's just worth 1,000 words. I wish I could have a side by side of the green and the mold and the deterioration, because that was the condition of this school when we started. It kind of gives you a feel of what the interior of the units feel like, look like, the quality, high energy efficient appliances, heating, cooling systems, LED lighting package throughout. Insulation, we're going towards Earthcraft Gold, so Energy Star and rooftop insulation, wall insulation are all beefed up. There's nothing worse than having a place and your electric bill is more than your rent. But the below's apartments there, the community space that you see with the radius wall, that is part of the community space for the auditorium that the city leases. 3D, just the layout, a typical layout of what one of our 1 bedrooms would look like. Rendering. And to give you overall, it's a total, again, like Chris said, 49 units. And we have a total of 9 1 bedrooms, 28 2 bedrooms, and 12 3 bedrooms is what we are proposing here. Financing, as proposed, Rivermont's we feel is over $10 million. Starting number by the time we can secure awards, and this is a very competitive award process and application process. But after securing the awards, and by the time we strike the first nail, hopefully things have gotten under control and things are not going up so rapidly in percentages. But we're starting right now at about 10. What we're seeing on other projects is they're going up rapidly. Developed under two market, one project approach, whereas the historic school, that's demographic targeting, we would target seniors and individuals or single parents with small children. While the new construction building is more for families, loft down, our playground, picnic shelters, and amenities for children would be on that side of the site. We would also have exercise rooms, computer rooms, free internet, big community room for birthdays, celebrations with kitchenettes, and management office. Also laundry rooms, but we would also have in-unit laundry rooms well and hookups. The financing through several different programs, federal housing tax credits, the federal and state historic credits, by getting this listed on the historic register. And Crystal and Draper Aiding are working together to get that process started, because whether or not this moves forward as proposed or an ideal what is proposed, getting it listed on the National Register and having that in place, it just helps the ability to get this project to move forward on something that's positive for the community. And permanent bank financing, which we do through several different banks, and which Federal Home Loan Bank of Atlanta, Pittsburgh, Virginia Housing has several loan programs with the REACH financing, and also home financing. So we put in competitive applications for low interest home funds and housing, what's called housing trust funds as well. Important deadlines are just as we see, if it's success, if it moves forward and we submit an application that would be due in March. We've submitted local notifications of different ideals and mixes and square footages of the project. But the final deadline for the full application is in March, late March, middle March of 21. We'll know final Virginia rankings come out in May, and then the state announces, governor announces in June. Once he announces, it triggers A&E. The historic listing would already be on its way, and then we would start putting together packages to market the various tax credits that is awarded. But then that would take place from June to June of the following year. All documentation, because it has to be submitted in designs and stuff to state and federal historics to review what we plan to do to the school, to make sure that we are not that we're meeting the interior the standards for historic rehabilitation, Secretary of the Interior standards for historic rehabilitation. So we'd start construction, close on property, start construction mid 2022, and would anticipate pre-leasing starting first quarter, starting in the second quarter of the following year, and welcoming the first residents to the community in June, July, August timeframe. Benefits for the city of Covington. The housing is huge. You're revitalizing a dilapidated building and an attractive nuisance that could create issues later. You have to maintain it, care for it. The town's responsible for all costs of it. Our city is. Takes an unused site and puts it back on the tax rolls, but most importantly, gives the community a new use for something that has been in use since 1930s. So it's amazing, and then we could keep it in use again for another 100 years through the housing program through Virginia Housing. Combined direct and indirect contributions, the apartments, construction, operations, and residents spending an estimate of more than $9 million. Construction, workers staying there, utilizing hotels, and it just ripples effects down. And we'd be creating 2 full-time jobs for the duration of the life of the property. And then again, 20 years from now, we would be seeking additional funds to revitalize it and spend what I'm seeing in the revitalization of the schools that we're doing now. What we spent on them 20 years ago, we're spending that. If we spend $6 million now, we're going to spend $6 million 20 years from now. If you get, my grandfather used to tell me growing up, he worked in coal mines, that it takes a whole day of hard work to buy a good pair of work boots. And you know, $150 for a good pair of work boots, it still takes a whole day or more to buy a good pair of work boots. So inflation's really not that. If you still, that's how Papa used to explain it to me. But this is, and this is probably better explained by Sam, but this is a national program that you can put in what you're proposing to build, and it gives you the economics of what it provides to the community. And this is not ours. We didn't put this together. This is something you go on the internet and say, if you build 10 houses and they cost this, and they provided homes for 8 adults and this, it's going to spit out the benefit and the economics for the community that you do that in. And I can't thank everybody enough for letting me give my presentation of our vision for Claremont School and what it could be for the community.
Rivermont, but thank you, John.
Did I say Claremont?
You did.
Oh,
did.
I'm sorry, guys.
We're doing-
I was there all day yesterday.
It's okay. It was a great presentation and a lot of valuable information, great visuals to really help us conceptualize what we need to incentivize ourselves to work towards. My vice mayor has some questions.
The big one is, Mark, before you know it, what happens if you don't meet the March deadline for the submission? Does that throw everything off a complete year? Instead of 23, it'll be 24 for occupancy.
Yes, sir.
So what else do you need from us as a council outside of what we're doing on the agenda tonight?
We will discuss that in closed session. There is a checklist, though, that I will say, and we're working robustly on that checklist. What I will say is, one of the things is public transit. We have a discussion with Radar about relocating to stop. We have worked to certify the zoning, that the current zoning supports that. The other thing that you all will need to do is the revitalization that's on the agenda. Then we're also working on, as Mr. Stiltner alluded to, was the historic preservation and the designation on the historic registry piece. That is another crucial component. And really just moving forward with getting enough density. Any developer will tell you that it's about density and making sure you get enough units to make it where it is worth investing significant dollars when you're talking about a $10 to $20 million project. Do we have any other questions? I see Mr. Carson unmuted. Councilman Carson? Sorry.
Yeah, I'd love to have it for Rivermont, and my district would love to have that. It's a beautiful looking thing that we could really use up in that area. Yeah, I'm all for it. I told Crystal that I would help, like through the housing authority. We could get together with Kim Bird and see what we can work out, maybe as far as the housing authority using that for possibly some of their rental properties.
Mr. Mayor, I'll transition it over to you in case anyone has any questions. My apologies. I'm just excited.
Yeah, I am too.
It's a good use for that property. We've been trying to do something with that for a long time. There's some really neat architecture in that building. The old cabinets in the wall, and that's the one that has the cabinets in the wall. Real nice stuff like that. A lot of marble in there, I think. I haven't been there about 4 or 5 years. Looks a lot worse than the last time I was in there.
Well, you, sir, you have a very good memory. Yes, there is marble. It has a huge historic characteristic inside the building. like I said, I commend the community around that building for 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 protecting it, because you don't find 1930 schools that have the original glass left in the built-in cabinetries that your teacher would smack your hands with a ruler if you got in them, because she kept her, you know, her bourbon behind. My third grade teacher used to keep her bourbon behind the books in those same cabinets. So, but and just, you know, the memories. We just redeveloped. Anybody knows where Glasgow, Virginia is at?
Yeah.
It's just a small dot on a map, and unless you've been there or went to Natural Bridge, you don't even know about it. But the elementary school in Glasgow, Dwayne developed that school 30 years ago, and it's other than the carpet factory there, it is the biggest building in town, and we just revitalized it. And there's a gentleman that lives in his second grade classroom that he moved out to California. He had his career, he had his life, and he moved back, and he's lived in this property, that project, for over 5 years. And the biggest complaint when I went in and I talked to all the residents of what's wrong with this, with your apartment, how can we fix it? And his was like, it was really leaky. You know, there was a lot of cold coming from the floor. So we did a blower door test, and it picked the carpet up, you know, an inch off the floor, because it's all hardwood floor underneath. So we fixed that problem for him. He got back in there and he caught me on the project last time I was there, and he just thanked us. And then he told our Virginia inspector just his life story, and you know, his second grade teacher, and the stories that you would have of your second and third grade teacher. And it's not, you know, Rivermont in down Northern Virginia, the size, the built-in cabinetry, the uniqueness, the historic character, the loft style living, the quality of appliances and hookups, those would be sought after and taken off the market, and you'd never be able to live there. Well, that's what Dwayne created with our company. Is we come to rural communities and we do that, and we try to preserve those memories. And if one's lucky enough to go back and live in their first or second grade or even third grade classroom, we're working at school. Like I said, I can get emotional about schools. You know, I'm not always going to say I'm the right fit for every community, or I'm going to take care of your school better than somebody else can. But I tell you what, I'm not going to fail from lack of effort. I'm going to give it my all.
Thank you, John. Crystal, it looks like city manager report's next.
I'm working on my Zoom etiquette,
Very good.
trying to mute when I'm not talking, so I can't just interject, because I so often do. So I have 3 primary things that I want to update you on, and one of them will actually be a little brief slideshow when I get that opportunity. First and foremost, somehow this is always the push button hot topic for everyone. We did close and complete our recycling survey. I did give it an extra day and a half with allowing responses. Our recycling survey formally closed late Saturday afternoon. We did receive 129 responses. It was open for just almost a full 3 weeks. I will actually give you guys a breakdown of the whole responses, of how they all came about with percentages and what everyone's thoughts were next month, so that hopefully then we can all have a really good discussion on how we move forward as a city with recycling. The next thing is, I do want to mention to you all that we will be having a jail and inmate housing discussion on February 22nd with Allegheny County, the city of Covington, and Rockbridge, on just how we can be much more responsible and responsive in our costs for inmate housing, and what that may or may not look like. And part of that may involve, you know, renewing some of our discussions that we've had previously through the joint services discussion, when we looked at what the statute originally allowed from the General Assembly, as far as having a regional jail authority and what we can do to best leverage being responsible stewards of the tax dollars with regards to the ever increasing cost that it takes to house someone in a jail, because it ain't cheap, which I'm sure you all are aware of. Last, I would like to show you, today I received a very meaningful and very informative presentation, well, PowerPoint synopsis from a Virginia Department of Emergency Management call and update with VDEM and then the Virginia Department of Health, just kind of giving a really good synopsis of where we are with COVID here as far as the Roanoke County Allegheny Health District. And that really comprises really all of near Southwest Virginia. And I wanted to give you guys some visuals. I did send it to you all, the full presentation. But I think it's important that we kind of display some of this stuff for the public, but also emphasize that vigilance and maintaining the continued measures that are recommended are important. Thomas, could you give me the ability to share my screen?
You have it.
I have it. Oh, sorry. That means I go up. Oh, share screen down at the bottom. There we go. PowerPoint. All right. Let's do from beginning. All right. So again, this information was received today. I did send it to all of the Highlands COVID-19 task force. So really that is about 40 individuals that represent a cross-section or cross-functional team of our governmental partners, such as the CSB, social services, as well as our governmental entities, sheriff's office, all of law enforcement, RPD, Clifton PD, all of our governmental entities in the region, our schools and all of that. So this was meaningful information, as well as our local hospitals receiving this. So I need to minimize you guys so I can see on my screen. One of the things, and I am not the best at this, but our cases have been decreasing for the last 24 days within the Roanoke County Allegheny Health District. That is an important thing to note. So in near Southwest Virginia, we have been continually seeing a decrease in positive case counts and like the overall transmission for the last 24 days. So our percent positivity rate overall, and so I will say that the district kind of covers all the way from Franklin to Roanoke. It's very broad. The positivity rate does remain at 10%. That is 10.1% is higher than what the overall kind of sweet spot is when you want to say you want to be at 10% and decreasing for really looking at resuming much of the, original normal activities as far as being able to gather, being able to do those things. But again, we are at 10.1% here within the whole region, and that is steadily decreasing, and that has been decreasing for 35 days. That marker right there was one of the driving forces that allowed us to make some determinations that were needed as far as allowing staff fully back into offices with preventative measures such as wearing the face coverings, having the sneeze guards, and trying to practice social distancing to the best extent possible, which has really allowed the treasurer's office and the revenue commissioner's office to get their staff back into what would normally be considered too small of a workspace when we had those very high percent positivity rates. Healthcare workers, this is great news because we rely on them and we have throughout this entire pandemic. Their positivity rate is at 1.3%, so that's steadily decreasing and has been for the last 17 days. I know you all get our COVID data, and we've even been seeing that with our EMS workers and their rate of exposure. Emergency department visits related to COVID throughout this entire swath of the area is at 14.8%, and that's been decreasing for over 31 days, as has the ICU hospitalizations when you factor in per 100,000 of population. Now, I will say when it says per 100,000 of population, the population sample that they have as far as for the Roanoke County Allegheny Health District and what this VDEM region is about 178,000, to put that into context. So we still do remain at a high number of hospital beds occupied throughout this entire region. So if you're looking at Roanoke, Salem, locally, anything, continues to fluctuate. It does continue to increase. I also do think, and this is just speculation, as we continue to raise awareness with COVID, folks are seeking treatment early on rather than waiting. So we still do continue to have that high burden as well, though. It is important to note. So while we have these great markers that are indicating that we have a good majority of people doing the right thing and we're starting to see that trend down, we still remain at a substantial risk for transmitting. There is a lot of notions that in coming March, we may start to see some of the variants emerge here that have started making their presence known in various states throughout our country and in other countries. And that will take me to not so much this slide, but another slide. So our hospitalizations, again, this is just a breakout of the hospitalizations in the Allegheny area. And that really does cover like Salem, Franklin, all of those small localities, and it kind of bundles us all up. We are the light 179 to the cumulative 964 deaths within the Roanoke County Allegheny Health District. And there's a really nice chart and visual there for you all. So this takes us to the hot topic that everyone's asking about in the vaccine data and the whole idea of the variants and the importance of the vaccinations and just providing some level of immunity. Within the Allegheny area, which again is not just Covington, Allegheny, Clifton Forge, and Iron Gate, it does encompass a few other localities. There's been over 30,000 doses administered. There's 4,100 people roughly protected, which means when you're saying fully protected, that are folks that have had the first and second dose of the vaccine. So collectively, that comprises 17% of the population, and just the Allegheny piece, which they comprise, is 178,000. And I will recorrect myself when I talked about the total percentage of what they were looking at as far as population and their numbers. It is that 961 that you see down at the bottom. But again, we are moving forward with vaccinations. I will say from what I'm hearing throughout the state, through various calls that I'm on, because we were labeled a hotspot for months and months on end, along with Northern Virginia and a few little pockets throughout the state, we did manage to get what one could perceive as some availability of vaccines before other areas. And we have done a really good job of rolling those out to the best of our ability here. And kudos to be made to Ms. Teresa Byers and our local health district office, because they have done a phenomenal job in just trying to get these vaccines to folks. So here's just a great visual on the vaccine data of where Allegheny stands, and we're actually leading as far as the localities that comprise Allegheny versus Roanoke, Central Virginia, and that's one of the areas that's a little lagging behind, New River Valley, and even West Piedmont. So we do comprise right now the majority of folks vaccinated within our end of Southwest Virginia. So I do think it's important to note that while we're not all getting the vaccine exactly when we want it and when we feel we need it, they are coming, and we have done a really good job here in our end trying to roll them out as efficiently as possible. And with that, I will end my screen sharing. Are there any questions?
Two.
Okay.
One, I have not seen anything about the prison inmates. Did they ever have any cases in the jail cells?
Yes, sir. They have had extensive numbers of cases in the jail locally and throughout jails within what you the Western Piedmont region, the other jails that we also use to send inmates to. They were trending down. I do believe they had an uptick a couple weeks ago. Has stabilized. It's always hard when you're bringing folks in from the community into an already isolated population and the risk that that poses. But they do have medical staff on hand, and they are doing testing at the jail here locally for folks as they come in.
Okay. My second question, I've been getting phone calls as to the Black community is not getting as many calls as, actually, I came here too many. calls as far as the vaccine goes. I knew there was two down at First Christian on Fudge Street. And people was calling me, wanting to know what was going on. And I didn't have no idea that it was even vaccine going on down there.
So I will say it's a multi-layered process where folks actually have to go onto the VDH website and register. And then VDH actually has to then take that information and enter it into the system so someone can register for a clinic. It is not just show up at a clinic. We are struggling right now, even with the folks that we've entered in category 1B, we've now moved on to trying to get our solid waste and wastewater folks prioritized for a vaccine, or the continuity of government folks, that we're having the challenge and that the demand right now is starting to exceed the availability of the vaccine. We have been successful in starting with, most of our public safety getting it, which means our EMS, firefighters, some of our other essential workers, whether they work at a funeral home, teachers, social services. I think the trickle out to the larger community is been the issue, but I will say from a VDH perspective, that is not far from the norm right now throughout the state. The general population's availability of vaccinations is few and far between, but the process to go about it is contacting VDH directly. And the city has put out at least one, if not two, notices on how you can work to register or work to contact VDH and get, in the queue to be added to lists.
Can I add something to that?
Yes.
There are a lot of people, it's hard for some to believe, in our community that do not either have access to a computer, especially the elderly, access to a computer, a desire to do anything on a computer, or know what to do. And I think that's part of the problem with a lot of people with the VDH website is if you don't have a computer, how are you going to get access and register? Is there anything the city can do to be a conduit for that? Because I know, and I hate to throw anybody out there, but calling the local health department to get on the list is not being very successful for a lot of people from what I'm hearing.
Correct.
And that's been my concern this whole time, is there are a lot of people that don't do computers. And what do these folk do?
So I will say we've run into that challenge even for our public works folks. We have a lot of people that do not actually have city email addresses. They don't even have personal email addresses. We've actually had to create Gmail accounts for them because city email accounts cost money so that they can check an email account. The way it's working right now is that once your name is submitted or that you call VDH or you go to the website, once it's in the queue, you have to have a mechanism for contact back. And they're really right now, to the best of my knowledge, doing all of that through email, which is unfortunate. But I guess they are viewing it as the most efficient way, given that you can push out an electronic message quicker than manually calling each and every individual person. And I will say that there is a backlog because of the extent of the desire for the vaccine in entering the folks that we've even sent in on our lists. So while we've done a good job of getting some of our core high exposure folks vaccinated, some of the others that, wastewater, refuse, that do face routine exposure are having a challenge in getting themselves added to the list, even though we've sent them into the health department. I think it's just a sheer volume issue. And part of it is just the overall plan or lack thereof that has been rolled out, but it does rely on email. And Thomas, I know you're listening, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, that was one of the cruxes of our PSA that we did, and really trying to make sure that we put out accurate information of how folks can get their names on the list. That is correct, yes. I do know that there are some people that have parents, elderly parents, who they've been added. they're getting an email, and if they don't respond within 20, 30 minutes, then that slot's almost gone. So it's not even like reserving a slot. It's just you get first come, first serve, but you still have to have that verification. So I think we're just getting into a point right now where we're still trying to work through that original listing of folks that tried to register for vaccines before they're even working to add the additionals. Because the demand has exceeded the availability. We started very aggressive and we started with an ample supply of vaccines, but I don't know who would have known that we were going to have so many folks wanting to have the vaccine here locally. Does that answer your questions? Yes and no. I can't fully speak for the health department.
Answer mine's part of it.
You know, my concern still is, and I think part of it, my concern goes into what Raymond's talking about is, you know, there are so many people in our community alone that's behind the 8 ball to begin with because they don't have email, they don't have a computer. Luckily, there are some elderly folks that I know that I was able to do through mine. You know, it's just frustrating that, you know, from the very beginning, I had no doubt that there were going to be a lot of people that want this.
So it does require a separate email address for each registrant. One thing that I could suggest, and this is not me trying to speak for our regional library, but I would encourage folks that then are looking for a way to register, and because there is the email component, our regional library would be a great resource to go in, get some assistance. How do I set up an email account? How do I check an email account? Because between Google, Yahoo, and there's a couple other free ones. I'm drawing a blank, but you can set up a free email account.
You've got to have an email account to get a notice. I was sitting in front of the computer the other day. My mom's notices come to my personal email. I was sitting in front of the computer. The email popped up. I immediately went to it to register, and it said, "This one is already full." I was sitting there and watched it pop up, and it was full by the time I tried to register. So it's just a kind of hit and miss.
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe the library is still closed to the public. Might want to check on that, but I don't think they're open to the public to do that part of it.
Good point. I've not followed up on that in their operations. I did see folks near the library, but I'm not sure the best way to solve that. I mean, there are various ways to set up an email account. Without a PSA of various free email things, but then we get into this quasi thing of where we're soliciting or, you know, endorsing free email services, like go and make a Gmail account or go make a Yahoo account. I'm not sure.
And I'm not sure that you have to have an email. I knew one guy that called the health department, and he called them 3 days in a row, and they was having one down there at First Christian. And they told him if you go down there that he would get one, which he did. Well, but while he was talking to him on the phone, he told him that his wife and son had to have one too. And they took all 3 of them over the phone.
Well, I will say that today I did receive a notification and I forwarded it to you all, and you all should have actually also gotten it, that the state is going to begin having some called conferences via phone and Zoom, I believe, for elected officials and administrators to discuss the vaccine rollout and the questions. What I would do is encourage you all to check that email, look at the date and time, and that will start to occur. And potentially, because it's statewide, use that as an opportunity to ask some questions, because I do believe it will be the governor's office and representatives from the state health department, so not necessarily the governor himself, but representatives of his office.
Anybody got anything else? Or the city manager's report? So we've got some things we need to look at tonight. We need to consider extending the community service board performance contract, the extension agreement till June 30th, 2021.
Move for approval.
See a second.
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 Is there any questions or discussions? This is kind of a routine thing we have to do every once in a while just to get them through to the 1st of July. All in favor of extending?
Aye.
We've got some ordinances and resolutions. We have what is that first one called? The
Uncodified.
uncodified ordinance 2102 regarding financial records access and reporting requirements. Did y'all have time to read that? Is there any questions, or did we have I guess we ought to start off with a motion in a second.
I move for approval.
A second.
Is there any questions, concerns? When we put the agenda out, is our whole packet included in the agenda, or is it just the agenda? Was this available to the public?
I have the whole packet.
That
I
would
had
be
a whole
a question for Ms. Scott.
I have a whole packet.
Yeah, I got the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm talking about to the public.
I'm sorry. Council receives the entire packet. Jerome Johnson, excuse me, what's his name, David? Yeah, Jerome Johnson, I'm sorry, at the Virginian Review requests the whole packet. Nobody else has requested the entire packet, but I always do extra copies in case anybody in the public asks for it.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure it was available outside of us.
Yes, sir.
So is there any other discussion, questions, concerns? You got anything, Dave?
No, I don't have anything. I'm ready.
I'm in total agreement with the ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, would you like the clerk to read the ordinance? Since the public perhaps did not get a full copy of it. Or are you okay just voting? I'm just asking since you asked.
It's a significant change to what we have done historically. And I don't want anybody to think we're trying to slip something under the rug or, you know, I think it's pretty significant what we're doing. I agree with it, but I still think there's a lot of significance to this.
Would you like me to read it?
Yeah, not sure what good that does other than it gets it out there, but we're going to vote soon as you read it. So I don't have much difference. Go ahead and read it.
All righty. Uncodified ordinance regarding financial records access and reporting requirements. Whereas the City Council for the City of Covington, Virginia wishes to ensure that all public funds held in its name are properly accounted for, dispersed, and reported in the most transparent means authorized by law. And whereas City Council deems it appropriate to formally set forth a process for accounting, processing, and reporting purposes that will be routinely followed to ensure all relevant parties have access to necessary financial information to facilitate proper budgeting and accounting of public funds. Now, therefore, it is hereby ordained by the City Council for the City of Covington, Virginia, that 1, access to all City of Covington's account balance at any and all banking institutions for which public funds are on deposit is hereby authorized to include the mayor, vice mayor, treasurer, city manager, and director of finance. And 2, authorized signatories on said City of Covington accounts shall be authorized to include the mayor, vice mayor, treasurer, city manager, and director of finance. Be it further ordained that in accordance with the requirements of section 58.1-3127B and 58.1-3135 of the Code of Virginia, 1950 as amended, City Council for the City of Covington, Virginia, hereby formally requests that the treasurer for the City of Covington on a quarterly basis provide City Council with a report of his or her receipts and expenditures and a statement of his or her account. Be it further ordained that the city manager, in cooperation with the treasurer, director of finance, and such other persons or parties as is deemed necessary, are hereby directed to develop and implement such policies and procedures to include the creation of an appropriate finance committee as may be necessary to ensure proper checks and balances as it relates to the collection, accounting, expending, and reporting of public funds held in the name of the City of Covington, Virginia. This codified ordinance shall become effective immediately upon its passage.
There are things that have happened during the COVID pandemic that have hindered the city's operations. I think this ordinance is a result of some of those hindrances that we've experienced. I just want to make sure everybody's plain and clear on what we're doing. I have a question about the last paragraph about the forming a, develop and implementing such policy to include the creation of an appropriate finance committee. Once we pass this, when will that take place? When will that committee be formed?
Mr. Mayor, I will defer to Mr. Popovich, our city attorney, but I do think it would be at our discretion. I know that there have been discussions already and that would involve director of finance, potentially a member or 2 of council, myself, and our treasurer. Mr. Popovich?
Yes, obviously that's completely at your discretion in terms of how quickly you want it done, but obviously the sooner the better. I would certainly recommend that as soon as the ordinance is adopted, you move forward as quickly and as expeditiously as possible to do these things. I mean, first of all, we want to make sure that, you know, there are proper processes in place and that the city makes full use out of the munisystem that it has acquired, it's paid for, and hopefully that will streamline and provide better accounting and reporting capabilities for the inner city and all departments, quite frankly. But the idea is to simply have a committee developed or put together that would allow for monthly meetings of that committee to go over any issues related to the implementation of the policies and procedures that are developed, where there are any kinks in the process, you know, try and develop ways to solve the problems and make things much more streamlined and efficient for purposes of the city.
Okay. And part of that committee will be 1 or 2 council members. Is that what I heard you say?
That's obviously up for discussion with the treasurer, the finance director, and the city manager, and whoever else. But I strongly recommend that it be at least 1, if not 2 members of city council involved in that process, just so that you can operate as a liaison. You know, maybe because it'll be more of a monthly meeting process, you will be able to answer questions that your other members may have during the periods between those quarterly reports from the treasurer.
I agree with Mr. Popovich, and that would be my recommendation. as your manager to you all is that there's at least a minimum of one, preferably two members of the finance committee. Now, I will say that if there are two members and we have another elected official, which is a constitutional officer, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Popovich, we would need to make those meetings public.
Well, the meetings would have to end up being public anyway, because it would be a committee that has been created by council for a specific purpose. And those committees are required to hold public hearings unless there is a closed meeting exception that they can go into closed meetings. So whether it's one or two members of council, it doesn't matter. It's still a committee that's going to be constituted by council. And so therefore it would have to be a public meeting.
Every time that committee meets would have to be a public hearing.
Right. It would have to be a public meeting that the public has access to. So you would probably end up having to have your meetings in council chambers, and, just open it up for public, at least observation, not necessarily public participation like citizen comments or anything, but at least have it open so that citizens could come in, listen to the discussion, and just kind of be made aware of the status of the city's finances.
So once we pass this, it doesn't matter who's on that committee, that meeting needs to be held in a public forum.
Yes, sir. I mean, that's the whole point of this, is to try and be more transparent, to have better access for the citizens. And, it's just a good thing to have. A lot of other localities have something very similar to this in form. And so it's just something that I recommend is something that's positive in terms of allowing the citizens to be more involved in understanding how the city government's finances work.
So can we, as council, do we have to add something to the agenda to discuss this beyond to set up the committee tonight?
No, the whole point of that particular section is just to allow the manager, the treasurer, and the director of finance, and whomever else they think is necessary to help set up these policies and procedures, to develop all of this information and then present it to you for your formal approval. And then that will be how everything proceeds going forward.
So if we're going to have council, we have
Say.
to name them tonight.
You don't have to do anything tonight other than just adopt the ordinance and then wait for the city manager to report back with whatever she and the treasurer and the director come up with.
So then in the paragraph before that, the treasurer is formally requested on a quarterly basis to provide council with a report of his or her receipts and expenditures and a statement of his or her account. Now, we would have had a report from the finance office. BB would have given us a report tonight, except he didn't have all the information he needed to complete his report. So he's going to move that till next month. Would we then go ahead and let the treasurer start next month, where her report and his report run hand in hand every quarter?
Correct, Mr. Mayor. I do believe that, last meeting we discussed that the treasurer would come next month and provide a presentation to you all directly in person or virtually. And I think that would complement when we're having our quarterly financial report, where we're going over revenues versus, or not revenues, expenses versus allocations, and what we're projecting our expenses to be, for then you all to get a holistic picture of where revenues stand right now and what we can potentially project revenues to be from all parties involved in the process. So it's off a little bit due to COVID and some processing delays, but then moving forward, we would do it on the traditional fiscal quarters, the second meeting of each.
What we should have received tonight would have been October, November, and December.
Correct.
then he would have had January to prepare the report. But he couldn't prepare the report because he hadn't seen all revenues or whatever else was going on. And
That is my understanding, Mr. Mayor.
so the next report be for January, February, and March, and we should receive it at the April meeting.
No, sir, you will receive your second quarter report because January, February, March is the third quarter.
Yeah, but we're going to receive next month, we're going to receive October, November, December.
Yes, you will receive your second quarter.
That'll be in March. Then
Correct.
May, we should receive January, February, and March.
Correct.
Have April to
Back on
prepare it, presented in May. Then
August, you would
April,
receive
June will be presented in July or August.
August because your quarter ends the 1st of July, so it takes about 2 to 3 weeks to wrap everything up.
So at those quarterly reports from the finance director, we will also get a quarterly report from the treasurer. Is that what we're saying?
Essentially, yes, sir.
Okay. So I got another question for the attorney, and I'm not sure if we need to do this here, but I'm getting a lot of complaints from people that are receiving penalties on their water bills when they've paid them on time and as far as they're concerned, but they haven't been posted on time, and they're getting a late fee on their next water bill. When they paid that bill, they put it in the deposit box outside where they're supposed to. They put it in there on time, but it did not post to Munis until a late penalty was added. And I think that's probably an automatic penalty. I don't think anybody adds that penalty. I think the computer system adds that penalty because of the posting dates.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. And I know Mr. Hunter has had that issue with some folks in his district as well as himself. We've had some businesses contact us. Part of that relies on our central accounting division relies on the posting process that occurs at the point of collection. And there has been delays. I do believe that they've worked to try to prioritize the tax collection process, which has created a little bit of a gear shift with the utility posting. Beyond that, I am not sure what kind of waiving of fees that we can do. I mean, we have waived any shutoffs during this period that we have had a local emergency declared. We've not done any shutoffs.
So when we waived the shutoffs, we didn't waive the penalties?
No, because we did have it that if you were not current at the time that we stopped the shutoffs, then you would be assessed your penalties.
So if I paid my December water bill on time, but it didn't post till late, I got a penalty. I wouldn't have got shut off, but I got penalized. Is that the way it's worked? So then my question to Mark is, can we waive these penalties on these late bills?
The statutes allow for you to waive penalties and interest. And I mean, from a practical perspective as well. I mean, I recognize the fact that weird situation that we're living through, and everybody's had to become a little bit more flexible. And so, you know, I certainly would recommend to you, I mean, you all don't necessarily have the day-to-day ability to decide on waiving or not waiving fees or penalties, but I would certainly encourage you to have conversations with, you know, the commissioner or the treasurer to come to some understanding and agreement that everybody come to some general agreement as to, you know, what the standard practice will be in terms of waiving such penalties and interest in situations like this. I mean, it would be incumbent upon the individual who deposited the check to have some type of proof that it really was done prior to the deadline. I don't know what that would be, because usually that's kind of what's known as the mailbox rule. It's a common law principle that, once you as the person that owes the money sticks it in the mail, you've made payment, because you don't have control over where the mail goes from there or how it's processed or anything like that. So that would be kind of where I would come from on this particular issue, is maybe come up with some process by which these penalties can be waived in situations where it's clear that the person deposited it on time. No reason to give them a penalty.
Well, what happened?
A process is slowed down.
What happened with mine? Mine was post dated the 15th. Not post dated, but mine was, the check was wrote the 15th. I took it down and put it in the mailbox outside the building.
Mhm.
And it still was posted late. And I had a penalty.
Yeah,
And that's what a lot of the people telling me.
yeah,
That's what I'm hearing too, Raymond.
yeah, and I can understand that, and that's why I'm saying I think that as long as, I mean, again, this is where I'm coming from, from the concept of let's try and be as flexible as possible here. I mean, this is, let's understand that the office building was shut down for the most part. I mean, we still had some staff, but we were dealing with the COVID issues. So we got to have some flexibility in this, and there's got to be a way that we can all come to an agreement as to how these penalties and interest are to be waived going forward, so long as there is sufficient proof that the person actually paid on time. If the check is dated December 20th, I don't think you can't get past that. But if it's dated December 1st, I don't see the reason why you wouldn't. A very similar issue just came up down in Franklin County. I got a call from a citizen down there that was being assessed a penalty for a late deposit of their tax check, because apparently they stuck it in the mail December 1st, and it wasn't postmarked in Greensboro, North Carolina's mail facility until December 29th. And they just had no control over that. I mean, you can't blame the citizen for that.
Mark, can I ask a question?
Yes.
One of our big hurdles is we have a drop box.
Right.
And with that, I mean, it's supposed to be checked daily, and then the mail is sorted daily, and not so much mail, but what comes in daily is sorted out. How does it work in an instance like that? Because we do have a broad percentage of our population that is paying through the drop box versus the mail-in payments or pay by telephone.
Well, I mean, again, I think that this again is another part of the learning experience that COVID has brought along, and it points out potential deficiencies in the processes and procedures that the city may be using in order to deposit those checks. And so that's why the whole point of this ordinance and this development of these policies and procedures came about, is that things are a little haphazard. We've discovered, because of this crisis, that certain things aren't meshing together correctly. And it just shone a spotlight on an issue that needs to be resolved. So I think that if you can come up with the appropriate policies and procedures going forward, that, at the end of every day, all those things that were put in the drop box are picked up, appropriately stamped, delivered that day, then, these kinds of questions go away. But for purposes of your situation right now, if you don't really have the ability to prove or disprove something, I don't know, you either waive it for all or waive it for none. You can't pick and choose.
Can I add two things?
Mhm.
And I was scrolling through on the notifications page. One of the comments came from an employee in the treasurer's office who reminded residents, when you get your bill and the part comes off, put it in there. They're looking in the box every day, but if that stub is not with it, then they have to send that list to central accounting to get them to print off another stub and to go back down. So that could be part of the delay Raymond's talking about.
Yeah,
The mail. Secondly, with the new Munis system, another question on here was, is there a way to set up auto pay eventually? And I've had this asked to me through the years.
I've got auto pay because it's checking out of my checking account every month.
Okay.
The auto pay stuff is usually set up through your banking institution. They automatically write the check for you and send it in. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean that the mail system doesn't flub up somewhere. So, again, these are unprecedented times. We just have to come up with ways of solving these problems. I don't know what the best solution would be at this point for folks that are upset about receiving notification of a penalty, but I'm sure there's got to be a way that you can come up with a means by which to decide who can properly get waived those penalties.
Well, Tom, let me ask you, with your auto pay, do you have the problem like Raymond was talking about with that delay and posting and that, or is it really much posting that day every month?
It posts the 18th of the month every month.
Okay. Now, did you have to go through central accounting and Jennifer to do that, or did you go through the bank to do that?
I thought I had to give somebody a cancel check to start the process.
Okay.
Usually if you're giving it to the institution that you're paying, you usually give them, like, for example, when I was renting, when you rent an apartment, you give them a blank check, voided check, and they can automatically withdraw from your account using your routing number that's on the bottom.
But it withdraws.
Probably that would. So you think that would be something if they contacted the treasurer's office, this person who asked us or anybody else would be able to set that up?
Should be able to.
If you all already have the ability, it sounds from the mayor that they do. That's an option. Then you don't have to worry about putting something in a Dropbox.
My utility bill doesn't come to my house. I never see it. I just see the 18th of the month. I see what's come out of my checking account. I know it's a bit complicated because there are people who have already paid the penalty they didn't know. I don't know how we could go back and redo that. I think that, somebody told me, well, you can't do that because you can't trust people to put the right date. I don't care what date they put on the check right now. That's not an issue to me. What's an issue to me is citizens that want to pay their bills in a timely manner are getting charged a fee because it didn't process it. That's an issue.
Tom, it's the same way with these tax checks too. I mean, I sent mine in on the 16th and I got it back like 4 days ago.
Yeah, I don't believe you got a penalty for being late.
No, I didn't, but I'm saying it could have been a water bill because it wasn't gotten to it on the right date either due to the pileup.
I think it's more a computer thing than it is anything else. And I understand why everybody's having problems. We've had the offices shut down. There's not been enough people in the offices to process sometimes. And that's what it is. But we as a city need to treat our customers better. We need to give them a better opportunity to pay and how they are charged penalties. And that's just another thing that's a part of this ordinance.
And Mr. Mayor, I will say that a lot of that discretion is outside of actual city agency or the initial determination and decisions are outside of my realm.
Right.
And I will say that one of the barriers that we had prior to having the building open for all of staff to come in was the positivity rate, which is still at 10.1%. So, that's only been recently decreasing, as well as the overall vaccine availability for, the essential workers that we have.
Yeah.
We've been stuck between, easy way to say it, we've been stuck between a rock and a hard place for quite some time, as has the rest of the country and, for that matter, the world.
Yeah. So we have a motion and we have a second to approve this ordinance tonight. If there's no other questions or discussion, I would entertain. Let's see, let's have Ms. Scott do a roll call on this.
Hold on, so you do that. What is it for now?
Do what?
What is this for?
This is to vote on this ordinance to establish some different checks and balances on what's going on.
Okay, yeah, I was make sure it wasn't like the water bill. Okay.
No, this is different. Well, that's part of that.
Are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Carter,
4,
Mr. Hunter,
4,
Mr. Tucker,
4,
Vice Mayor Crozier,
4,
Mayor Sabo.
4. Thank y'all. Sorry I took so long. I just needed to hear some explanations. Next item we have is to consider appropriation resolution 2107 regarding additional funds from VDOT street and highway maintenance funds, $7,107.53.
move for approval.
second,
Any discussions, questions, comments? Ms. Scott, could we have a roll call on this one?
Mr. Carson,
4,
Mr. Hunter,
4,
Mr. Tucker,
4,
Vice Mayor Crozier,
4,
Mayor Sabo.
For, next to consider resolution 2108 regarding the refund for the utility fund, state reimbursement of water and wastewater project costs for the Rain Road Buffer projects of $67,533.53.
move for approval.
second,
Questions or discussion? Ms. Scott, could we have a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Carson,
4,
Mr. Hunter,
4,
Mr. Tucker,
4,
Vice Mayor Crozier,
4,
Mayor Sabo.
4. Consider appropriation resolution 21-09 regarding acceptance of grant funds and commitment of city funds for Maple Avenue Streetscape Phase 2 in the amount of $295,354.
move for approval.
second,
Any questions or discussion? Ms. Scott, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Carson,
4,
Mr. Hunter,
4,
Mr. Tucker,
4,
Vice Mayor Crozier,
4,
Mayor Sabo.
4. Okay, we have resolution 2111. We added to the agenda exempting real estate taxation, revitalization area from on the real estate taxation.
move for approval.
second,
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah,
we're talking about the same thing. It should be a parcel that is designated as a revitalization area. I think there was initial confusion with Ms. Scott and I on what version was sent relating to Riverfront.
okay. Y'all understand that?
So, in order to move forward with the grant application process, it needs to be designated as a revitalization. I don't believe this is what we have in our package tonight. And there was a resubmission sent, and let me double check.
We've got two different things, resolution designating a revitalization area.
That's what you're gonna act on, not on the tax piece yet.
Okay, and we've got two different ones. The partially exempting certain real estate is the 2111. And then we added 2112 resolution designating a revitalization area.
And Mr. Stiltner can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe all you need at this immediate moment is the revitalization piece. The tax piece will come later, and we can discuss that further as that is an incentive piece to discuss in closed session.
Okay, so 2111 is what we're doing now, and we can table that till later.
Yes, sir, I do believe so. Mr. Stiltner, is the tax piece needed immediately?
The revitalization area, please, first, Crystal.
Okay, exactly. We need to act on the revitalization.
Okay, for 2111, I'll make a motion that this be tabled.
Second. All in favor?
Did we lose the mayor?
He's still there.
Y'all
Oh,
read-
there he is.
Y'all read your text, David.
Oh, sorry about that.
I had
My
to
bad.
wait for a second.
All right, sorry about that.
It's all right.
No notes during class.
Our biggest note maker of them all. So had a motion in a second.
Yes, to table 2111.
All in favor?
Aye.
Me too.
Thank
So
you
what
all.
about 2112?
2112 is the one we need to do tonight.
Yes.
Don't you have them backwards?
Yeah, they were backwards. In other words, the second one is the one that we have to do first before we do the first one. So 12 is first and then 11.
We don't need to do 11 tonight though, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So we've tabled that. What we need to consider now is 2112, and I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Questions or discussion?
And Ms. Onitis, I assume that when it's time to go back and get the 2111, you'll bring that up to us to do. Okay.
Absolutely, and it's already been vetted by our Assistant City Attorney, Mr. Lockaby.
Okay.
So was the numbers backwards on the two resolutions? Is that what y'all are telling me?
No, the numbers were fine. We just don't need to do 11 tonight. We do need to do 12.
And we've got a motion and a second on 12.
Yeah.
Ms. Scott, would you do a roll call on that, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Carson,
Yes. 4.
Mr. Hunter,
4,
Mr. Tucker,
4.
Vice Mayor Crozier,
4.
Mayor Seibald.
4. Council, do any of you have new business? Would entertain a motion to go into closed session.
All righty. That's my.
Read it, David.
All righty. Gentlemen, I move that council of the city of Covington convene in closed session pursuant to the Freedom of Information Act, section 2.2-3711A3 of the Code of Virginia for a discussion regarding the acquisition of real property for a public purpose, where discussion in public would adversely affect the bargaining position of the city. And pursuant to the Freedom of Information Act, section 2.2-3711A8 of the Code of Virginia for consultation with legal counsel related to specific legal matters related to potential city liability.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have new directions to follow to get into the closed session. And
What we
you'll
gonna take?
close out as the one you're in now. Is that right, Thomas?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Then we'll open up a new one after the closed session to certify.
Correct.
Could we do maybe a 5-minute break to make sure, because I wanted the consensus 10? Okay, potty and smoke break. So that Thomas can make sure that Mr. Stiltner has the closed session link, since I wanted consensus for you all before he received that.
Yeah, John, please check it and see if you have it. You should have it now.
So we're gonna close out of this one?
Close out this one, go to the
Yeah.
email and open up the ones in your email for the closed session.
Okay.
Thomas, we got the link. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you all. See you guys in 10 minutes.